Nabonidus, the final Babylonian king and son of the Assyrian priestess Adad-guppi, ascended to the throne in 556 BC after overthrowing his predecessor Labashi-Marduk. For long periods, he would entrust rule to his son Belshazzar, a capable soldier but a poor politician who lost the support of the priesthood and the military class. The Persians had been growing in strength to the east under the leadership of Cyrus the Great, who soon led a military expedition to conquer Babylon. In today's documentary, we are going to analyze the Persian expedition to Babylon and the subsequent fall of it. Several factors led to the fall of Babylon. The population of Babylonia became increasingly disaffected with Nabonidus. The Marduk priesthood hated him because he suppressed Marduk's cult and his elevation of the cult of the moon god Sin. He excited a strong feeling against himself by attempting to centralize the religion of Babylonia in the temple of Marduk at Babylon, and thus alienated the local priesthoods. The military despised his scholarly tastes. He seemed to have left the defense of the kingdom to Belshazzar, a capable soldier but poor diplomat who alienated the political elite, while occupying himself with studies like excavating foundation records of the temples to determine their dates. He also spent time outside Babylonia, rebuilding temples in the Assyrian city of Haran, and also among his Arab subjects in the southern deserts. Nabonidus and Belshazzar's Assyrian rather than Babylonian heritage is also likely to have added to this resentment. In the 6th year of Nabonidus, Cyrus the Great, the Achaemenid Persian king of Anshan and Elam, revolted against his suzerain Astyages, king of the Manda or Medes, at Ecbatana. Astyages' army betrayed him, and Cyrus established his rule at Ecbatana, putting an end to the Median Empire and elevating the Persians among the Iranic peoples. 3 years later, Cyrus became king of all Persia and was engaged in a campaign to put down a revolt among the Assyrians in 547 BC. Meanwhile, Nabonidus had established a camp in the desert of his colony of Arabia, near the southern frontier of his kingdom, leaving his son Belshazzar in command of the army. According to Doherty and S. Smith, Cyrus invaded Syria, most of Babylon's eastern possessions. In a few months, many of Nabonidus' vassals were under Persian authority. Nabonidus had to return to Babylon in 543 BC due to Cyrus constantly raiding the border. The Nabonidus Chronicle records that prior to the invasion, Nabonidus had ordered cult statues from outlying Babylonian cities to be brought into the capital, suggesting that the conflict had begun possibly in the winter of 540 BC. In a fragmentary section of the Chronicle, which is presumed to cover 545-39 BC, there is a possible reference to fighting, a mention of Ishtar and Uruk, and a possible reference to Persia. The Battle of Opis was thus probably only the final stage in an ongoing series of clashes between the two empires. The Nabonidus Chronicle records that a battle took place in the month of Tashri to 27 September 27 October at Opis on the Tigris. Very little is known about the events of the battle. The Chronicle does not provide any details of the battle's course, the disposition of the forces on either side, or the casualties inflicted. The Persian army under Cyrus fought the army of Akkad, meaning the Babylonians in general, not the city of that name. The identity of the Babylonian commander is not recorded in the Chronicle, but it has traditionally been assumed that Belshazzar, the son of Nabonidus, was in command. His fate is unclear, and he may have been killed in the battle. The outcome of the battle was clearly a Babylonian defeat, possibly a rout, as the defeated Babylonian army is not mentioned again in the Chronicle. Following the battle, the Persian forces took plunder from the defeated Babylonians. Most translations of the Chronicle also refer to a massacre of the people of Akkad, though translators disagree on which side was responsible and who was killed, the population of Opis or the retreating Babylonian army. The Babylonian defeat at Opis appears to have ended any serious resistance to the Persian invasion. The Nabonidus Chronicle states that following the battle, on the 14th day Sippar was captured without battle. Nabonidus fled. The Chronicle's wording implies that Nabonidus was present in Sippar when the Persians arrived. Cyrus remained in Sippar, and on the 16th day, 12 October, Ugigubru, governor of Gutium, and the army of Cyrus, without a battle, entered Babylon. According to Xenophon, Belshazzar was killed in this conflict, but his account is not widely accepted. Nabonidus surrendered and was deported. Gutian guards were placed at the gates of the great temple of Baal, where the services continued without interruption. Cyrus did not arrive until 28-29 October, with Gobryas having acted for him in his absence. Gobryas was then made governor of the province of Babylon. The Neo-Babylonian Empire had pursued a policy of population transfer, but one of the first acts of Cyrus was to allow these exiles to return to their own homes, carrying with them the images of their gods and their sacred vessels. Permission to do so was embodied in a proclamation, whereby the conqueror endeavored to justify his claim to the Babylonian throne. According to the biblical account, Cyrus sent the Jewish exiles back to Israel from Babylonian captivity. Although the Jews never rebelled against the Persian occupation, they were restive under the period of Darius I, consolidating his rule, and under Artaxerxes I, without taking up arms or reprisals being exacted from the Persian government. Among Babylonians, feelings were still strong that none had a right to rule over Western Asia until he had been consecrated to the office by Baal and his priests, and accordingly, Cyrus henceforth assumed the imperial title of King of Babylon. Cyrus claimed to be the legitimate successor of the ancient Babylonian kings and the avenger of Baal-Marduk, and portrayed himself as the savior chosen by Marduk to restore order and justice. Cyrus was assumed by the Marduk priesthood to be wrathful at the impiety of Nabonidus, who had moved the images of the local gods from their ancestral shrines to his former capital, Babylon. A year before Cyrus' death, in 529 BC, he elevated his son Cambyses II in the government, making him king of Babylon, while he reserved for himself the fuller title of king of the other provinces of the empire. It was only when Darius I acquired the Persian throne and ruled it as a representative of the Zoroastrian religion that the old tradition was broken and the claim of Babylon to confer legitimacy on the rulers of Western Asia ceased to be acknowledged. Immediately after Darius seized Persia, Babylonia briefly recovered its independence under a native ruler, Nadintabal, who took the name of Nebuchadnezzar III. He purportedly reigned from October to December 521 BC when the Persians took it by storm, while during this period, Assyria to the north also rebelled. A year later, in 521 BC, Babylon again revolted and declared independence under the Armenian king Araka, who took the name Nebuchadnezzar IV. On this occasion, after its capture by the Persians, the walls were partly destroyed. Esagila, the great temple of Baal, however, still continued to be maintained and was a center of Babylonian patriotism. The Macedonian king Alexander the Great conquered Babylon in 331 BC and died there in 323 BC after a decade of wars between Alexander's former generals. Babylonia and Assyria were absorbed into the Macedonian Seleucid Empire. It has long been maintained that the foundation of Seleucia diverted the population to the new capital of Babylonia, and that the ruins of the old city became a quarry for the builders of the new seat of government, but the recent publication of the Babylonian chronicles of the Hellenistic period has shown that urban life was still very much the same well into the Parthian age 150 BC to 226 AD. The Parthian king Mithridates conquered the region into the Assassid Empire in 150 BC, and the region became something of a battleground between Greeks and Parthians.